Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan McGuire, Director of Professional Development at ACCE, and I'm really happy to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar. In today's webinar, in honor of Veterans Day on November 11th, we are going to talk about the rapidly growing post-9/11 veteran constituency in the United States, which is estimated to exceed 3.5 million by 2025. We will learn how your chamber can tap into this growing demographic to grow membership, act as a convener and leader in community workforce and development initiatives, and of course, serve those who have served our country. To lead our program today, we have two special guests. First, Joanna Rolek, Executive Director of the Lake Bluff Chamber of Commerce in Lake Forest, Illinois, and Casey McEwen, President and Executive Director of Project Relo and Vet Talks, and a board member of the Frisco, Texas Veterans Advisory Committee. So before I hand the program over to our panelists, I do have a few housekeeping notes. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. And second, after the presentation, we will have time for questions, which you can ask by using the question function of the webinar. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just type in your question and I will read the question to our panelists. If we run out of time and don't get to your question, or if you have a question that you would prefer to chat with one of the panelists individually offline, that is totally okay. Our panelists' contact information will be on the last slide. And if you do ask a question in the question box and we don't get to it, we will contact you. So no worries about that. And then third, the webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the ACCE website on the ACC University webinar page no later than Monday, November 12th. And I will let you know how to get to that webinar page a little later at the end of the webinar. So with that, I would like to introduce our speakers. Joanna Rolek is the Executive Director of the Lake Bluff Chamber of Commerce, a chamber of over 430 members located on the shore of Lake Michigan, 35 miles north of Chicago. She's been head of the chamber for 21 years, and Joanna's professional training and background include experience in marketing, leadership in both not-for-profit and for-profit settings, and extensive board and volunteer involvement in community, educational, performing arts, and philanthropic arenas. So welcome, Joanna. And Casey McEwen is President and Executive Director of Project Relo and Vet Talks, and a board member of the Frisco Veterans Advisory Committee. Casey's committed to these roles that pinpoint the intersectionality between business talent needs and the skills, training, and rich character of our transitioning veterans. At the age of 25, Casey was an aspiring Olympic athlete and a fierce competitor on the Army's Taekwondo team. 8 years later, he earned the Purple Heart when he was injured in Afghanistan. Discharged from the military after his recovery 3 years later, he worked to assimilate into a society that was unable to understand the full extent of what a veteran of 17 years had to offer the workforce. Galvanized by these experiences, Casey dedicated himself to helping veterans transition more effectively into the civilian workforce. He was honored by President Barack Obama in April of 2016 for his continued service to the veteran community. Casey holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Social Services from Thomas A. Edison University and a Master of Social Work with an emphasis on military community organization, policy, and advocacy from the University of Southern California. So Casey, thank you for your service to the country, and to both of you, Joanna and Casey, thank you both for your ongoing service to the veterans community that we're going to hear more about in your presentations today. So with that, I will now turn over the presentation to Joanna.
Susan, thank you so much. And I can tell you that it's such a privilege and pleasure to be doing this with Casey. This is something that has proven to be very near and dear to our hearts at our chamber. And it's my great pleasure to be able to share this with my colleagues. What I wanted to do in launching into this topic is just share a little bit of context. A snapshot of our chamber, as Susan mentioned, we're approximately 430. I think we might have surpassed that this past week, 430 members. We happen to have a membership that is primarily 10 and under employees. It's a community of retail, obviously, entrepreneurs. We have a lot of small businesses, and I would say at this point that we have around 310 businesses that are under 10 employees, and then we have some larger employers as well. I wanted to share that because when I look at the kinds of things that we have been evolving into, I really feel very strongly that these things can be done by chambers of all sizes. And so I just wanted to set a little groundwork on that. So to talk a little bit about what we do that is probably parallels what you do. In terms of benefits and services, we serve to connect our members with networking and with curating contacts in the community and also with the public, both B2B and B2C. We have opportunities for engagement, whether they're promotions or they are other types of activities and initiatives. We offer them the opportunity to get noticed through our publications and a variety of promotional opportunities, social media, which again, I know all of us are involved with, and then tapping resources. What we will talk about in a little bit is how we have used some resources that we have to be able to share them with our constituency, but also very importantly with this new constituency that we were introduced to. So when we got to, I'd say 3 years ago, with the introduction of the Horizon Initiative, we took it very seriously because in our community, as in many of our communities, we were seeing tremendous disruption in the marketplace, in the way that we convene, in the way that we do everything actually, and in business. So we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our constituency and at the same time preserving our role as an association of value, so that we took a deep dive into all of this by having one aspect of the Horizon Initiative on the table at each of our board meetings for several months. We reviewed it as a board, we asked for input from our constituency, and we came up with a directive that gave us the license and also the enthusiastic support of everyone to really go up 10,000 feet and look and see where we could be useful. And it went beyond storefronts, not excluding storefronts, but it went beyond storefronts and beyond our traditional constituency. Just at that time, I was introduced to a program in Chicago that's called Bunker Labs, and to Justin Walker, who is the was the executive director of Bunker Labs at the time. And that was a program dealing with, it was entrepreneurial activities, training, and also creating a team of veteran entrepreneurs, helping them move forward, offering them the kinds of things that a Chamber of Commerce would do, but focused on the entrepreneur. And when we learned about the kinds of things they were doing, we were very excited about it because we are actually on the border of Great Lakes, the Naval Base Great Lakes, which is an enormous installation here in the Midwest, and it is the only training base in the country, boot camp. And because we have such a close proximity to them and such an affinity to those that are involved at Great Lakes, finding out about the transitioning veteran was something that was very interesting to us. And we saw this as an opportunity to be of assistance, to bring in a new constituency. So I'm going to give you just a few facts about it. And Susan did address this, but there are more than 200,000 service members that return each year. And this is estimated to be 3.5 million by 2025. They are looking for a connection back into the civilian workforce. Casey will get a little more into that later, but we saw this as an opportunity to be of assistance. They are also looking for a lead to mentors and resources for starting a business and being able to find employment. An introduction, whoops, sorry, didn't mean to go so fast. An introduction to the community and professional networks and resources, and also exposure to further education and training. This was something that we thought we could be helpful in, and I'll give you a few ideas and the ways that we did it. First of all, we took a look at this and we saw that it would be a wonderful opportunity to be able to serve this new group of potential members. That's number one. Number two, it would give us the opportunity to support workforce development and also economic development in our county, as we have a number of people who are transitioning veterans or transitioned veterans who are in our fold. We wanted to exhibit this willingness to evolve to meet the changes in the marketplace. It was well worth it to be able to do the surveying that we did, to talk to our constituencies, but also we found this as an opportunity to move forward, truly. Establishing new channels for communication and connection was something that we did, and I'll share with you some of the ways that we did that. To attract new community partners who would be willing to collaborate in these initiatives. We found that there were several entities within our county, within the region, and even federal officials who jumped on the opportunity to join us in this. Attracting the new community partners, creating an opportunity for chambers to be catalysts for greater good and to serve those who have served our country. It goes without saying, and that's something that we find very, very rewarding. These are the kinds of things that we can do, and we have learned this over the past 3 years through the activities that I'll share. One is to help change the perception about returning vets. Casey will get more into that, and the fact that, as he says, the returning vets are looked upon as heroes, but what we need to do is be able to bring them in as fellow workforce participants. We have learned that the military ethos and mindset is something so valuable in the civilian arena. We have provided some educational programming to bring that to our businesses, and it has been a wonderful activity, very successful and very popular. We also wanted to provide a landing ground for entrepreneurs. We reached out to Bunker Labs and to other entities and said, basically, send your people to us. We have some complimentary networking events. Send them. Give them the opportunity to share time with us, and pardon the analogy, but to have boots on the ground when it comes to being able to meet generations, to sell their business, to learn how to network, the soft skills that come along with it. Offer an introduction to community and professional networking. And that is, again, we'll get a little more into that. Creating and providing opportunities for face-to-face experience with business development. As we all know, business people learn from each other, and that is something that we wanted to also do. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having a little challenge here, but let me continue talking. Offering connections with seasoned business professionals with multiple generations and mentors, definitely, and very easy to do. Practicing inclusivity and the willingness to evolve to meet the needs of new kinds of businesses and a new constituency. That was something that was an opportunity for our chamber, and we embraced this opportunity. And also to raise awareness and celebrate the contributions of those who are in military service. What I learned in my opportunities to meet and talk with people who are in the military and also have come out of the military is that it's handshakes, opportunities, and community engagement that they are looking for. And that is what we found ways to provide. And again, I'm certain that in your communities you find you have some wonderful opportunities that will manifest, but I'll tell you a little bit about what we did. First of all, on our website, we created something we called our Military Connections webpage. And actually, we branded our entire initiative Military Connections. This page doesn't fully show here, but what it is an invitation for our military neighbors and guests to be able to join us in our communities, to go to some of the businesses. We have quite a few that are listed below this that offer a discount, that offer some sort of service or some opportunity, and we invite people to take advantage of this. Also lower on this page is a list of military and veteran organizations in our county, but also some in our region that work with veterans and those that are transitioning, with hyperlinks to their websites, so that this is kind of a one-stop shop that we can provide for contact information. The networking. We started a program in 2016, actually. We started this whole initiative and coming up with these things at the end of 2015, but in 2016 was the first time that we started doing annual events, military connections events. What you're looking at here are actually 2 different years worth of photographs, and I'll do a little explaining because this was a morning networking event that was complimentary. It was underwritten, and it was something that we did. We probably had about 90 people attended that were both veteran and military organizations, but also citizens who wanted to come in and network with the individuals who were there. The gentleman who is speaking in the middle on the left there is a lieutenant commander from the naval base. Who is in charge of recruit training, and he was working with a program at the time to bring mindset development to youth. In the middle, you'll see 2 gentlemen of 2 different generations. Paul Bafico on the left was a Vietnam War vet and started Lake County Veterans and Family Services, in our county here. And to the right, Greg Jooms started an app that's called Victor app. And he is one of the gentlemen that came from that incubator downtown, Bunker Labs. So this is 2 different generations that came, and they each did a presentation that day of what they brought back and are bringing to the community at large. The app that Greg has actually assists veterans and those transitioning and their military families in finding services and different opportunities within their communities all over the nation. To the right is a photograph of government official or representative, I should say, who's offering some services at that same event. And then down below in the lower right was just a wonderful example of what these networking opportunities can make possible. You see that there is a veteran to the left, and I believe he was with something called Midwest Veterans Closet that is here. And to the right is Scott Phelps, who heads up a theater company here in town. And what they established that day was an opportunity for theater tickets for every show that they do for veterans. And that was the kind of partnership that just happens spontaneously. Educational presentations. Justin Walker, who I mentioned was our first contact with, or my first contact, I should say, with this whole world and just how we can move forward. Justin came and did a presentation. Look at the turnout. This was something that we labeled Mindset, Leadership, and Inspiring Success, taking Navy SEAL and SWCC training to the front line of business. He used his experience as a former instructor of SEALs to be able to present mindset. And what we learned that day in a very eloquent and very engaging way was how it's important for us all to assess, strategize, and execute to meet our goals. A good message for all of us, very well attended. And we have continued to have other educational presentations that are also very successful. And again, this is bringing the value of the military ethos and training, leadership, mindset out into the civilian world, which has been a great pleasure and very valuable for all of us. Community events. We initiated one, aside from the events that we already have in town that celebrate those that are of service to our community. There was one that was established, this happens to be 2016 as well, but Patriotic Spirit Day, which was the weekend of September 11th. And the purpose of this event was to celebrate the spirit of patriotism. We had partners, major partners, that included the American Legion. We had a local medical school. We had the Park District. We had other entities that supported us that were sponsors of this event. A lot of wonderful community participation. And our friends, 2 are active military and 2 are retired military, who are photographed in the second photo up at the top. They came and they had brought an obstacle course for kids, and they led the kids through the kind of obstacle course that well, it was a wonderful opportunity. There were adults that wanted to do it too, but at any rate, it just showed them how they could work together and how they could really inspire each other to succeed. And the fact that they cheered each other on was extraordinary. In fact, in the middle of this slide, you'll see a photograph of one of the personnel who were leading this activity and a little girl who just got stuck up there. She couldn't go back and she couldn't go forward, but there was a circle of her friends and parents and the individuals who were leading this obstacle course who sat there and cheered her on until she came down. And it was one of the highlights of the event. Just terrific. This also brought for us some wonderful publicity that you'll see here. And this is what a chamber wants, really. You know, we look for the right kind of publicity, obviously, but also in this day and age where we need to find our value, coming up as a solid community citizen and being able to share this kind of opportunity and bring this kind of spirit to our community has been something just we love and has been heartwarming. Lower left is the commander of the naval base who came and addressed our group to a wonderful response. And then around this, you'll see just some of the publicity that we got for that Patriotic Spirit Day. Before I turn it over to Casey, I just wanted to tell you what else we have gotten in terms of value from this. Aside from the fact that it has been of tremendous value to us to be able to be of value to those who have served our country, it has also brought this wonderful new dynamic into our chamber, both in the camaraderie and the collaborations that we have seen, the sense of community, but also just the wonderful feeling of knowing that in some way we have been able to assist those who are involved in really bringing opportunities to the veterans, as Casey does. And it has been just a tremendous privilege for us. We have also gotten new members, and I know that's what we all like to see and hear. We've got new members, wonderful publicity, and an identity within our greater community of being a chamber that engages in this and is very interested and willing to provide this for our community. So I consider it a great privilege, again, that I have met some wonderful people who are doing some extraordinary things. And one of them is Casey McCune and his partners in Project Reload. So I would like to turn it over now to Casey.
Thank you, Joanna. That is going to be a hard act to follow.
Hardly.
Nope, that's going to be a hard act to follow. And thank goodness my coughing fit just ended right before you turned it over, because I thought I was going to be embarrassed for a little bit. All right, can you see my slides? I just want to make sure before I start.
Yes.
I see your slide. Looks good.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. It is an absolute honor and privilege to be able to speak with you guys today. As I was introduced, my name is Casey McCune. I am the executive director and president of a very unorthodox and very innovative nonprofit organization called Project Reload. Real quick about what Project Reload is we are a demand creator. What we do is we take corporate executives from the Small Business Association all the way through Fortune 500 companies, and we bring these executives, these leaders of the organization, out on 3-day pseudo-military operations where we are actually connecting these business leaders with transitioning service members. And the idea of it is it's changing the dialogue, it's changing the narrative on the way that corporate America looks at hiring these veterans. And one thing that kind of jumped out at me while Joanna was talking was the picture that she talked about where the little girl was on the wall and she was surrounded by all of her friends to encourage her to move forward. And what kind of dawned on me is the Chamber of Commerce as a whole. You know, one of the things that we do, and so I am actually down in Frisco, Texas, and the chamber that I'm involved with has a membership of a little over 1,300. And one of the things that I've noticed about our chamber is the chamber is much like those little girls' friends. You know, they're cheering everybody on to expand their business, to create a great business network. What they actually just started just in the last 2 months is the chamber has created their own, it's called the Frisco Veterans Foundation. And what they do is they create an opportunity for veteran business owners to come on board free of charge just to try it out, just to get that network going. And what they've seen is a drastic increase in memberships to do just the chamber. I've been fortunate to actually be a part of 6 different chambers over the last 6 years. I've moved around a lot, obviously, with the military, but then I just landed and we've moved the headquarters here to Frisco, Texas. A lot of this stuff is going to look very similar to what Joanna had expressed. Right now, the numbers are hovering right about 200,000 servicemen and women transitioning into the labor market each year. The alarming number that you're going to see here in a little bit is the way that companies look at hiring veterans. And right now, what's not depicted on the slide is that 10% of those transitioning veterans, they are going to become business owners. Right now, the population of companies in the United States, 10% of them are owned by veterans. And some of the companies that are out there that you wouldn't even have known that they were veteran owned, I'm just going to run through a real quick list, is FedEx, Fred Smith, who served in the Marine Corps, Walmart, both Sam and Bud served in the Army and the Navy, GoDaddy.com, Nike, Universal Health Services, Amway, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. All of those were veteran-owned businesses before they went public. But the reality is we need to bring these veterans into our chamber so we can actually help them. But at the same time, they can help us by actually leveraging their leadership and their character that they were taught while they were in the military. It's not just those hard skills that they learned, but they also learn those soft skills as esprit, value, service to others, and then obviously those leadership skills. So we partnered with Edelman Intelligence, who did a well-being survey on veterans back in 2017. And what was alarming is, if you look at the right side of this graph, what this was is over 1,500 employers through the Fortune 500 companies were actually given a survey about what was the first thing that they thought of when they thought about a veteran. And those are the 4 options they were given: as a hero, an average citizen, a victim, or a strategic asset. Now, when you actually look at this, they were given the opportunity to actually answer, multiple times on the same category. That's why you see some of these higher numbers. But 71% of those companies, they looked at veterans as heroes. And if you look down at the bottom, only 19% of them looked at veterans as strategic assets. So the whole reason that Project Reload exists is to change that dialogue. We want that number to be inverted. We want it to be completely changed. We want it to be that all companies look at hiring veterans as strategic assets. So again, we create the demand. We take these corporate executives and we put them through a 3-day, it's not a very physical challenge, but what I say, it's more emotional, because a lot of these executives, they are going to, excuse me, what they are going to learn is they're going to learn about themselves. I'll give you a perfect example. We had a CEO of a very large corporation that just came out. He went through what we put him through. It's a little rat tunnel where we actually put them through a buddy movement through a tunnel system. About 100 feet into it, he started hyperventilating, just started getting really nervous, and almost collapsed. And so we brought him out. We started talking to him, and as a social worker myself, one of the things that I started doing is started to figure it out where this all stemmed from. At the end of the day, we do what we call a Fireside Express, and we sit around a fire and we talk about what they learned about themselves, what they learned about a veteran, and what they learned about what these veterans can do for their companies. So this CEO of this large corporation had said that he had been discriminating against veterans his whole career because he thought they were very rigid, couldn't think outside the box. And he was scared of veterans because of that drastic word of PTS. And what he realized is that PTS is a human problem, not a veteran problem, because him collapsing in that tunnel was a result of him being stuck in an elevator 28 years ago when he was 13 years old. He was stuck in an elevator for 13 hours, and he today is still suffering from a little bit of PTSD. He avoids all the triggers of being in a tight room, in an elevator, and he actually walks 12 flights of stairs to get to his office just because of that one incident. So what did happen is it created a demand. From that moment, and this was 18 months ago, in those 18 months, that CEO has created a whole new veteran engagement program within his company and has hired over 500 veterans, and who has actually helped him increase his business by 12% in 18 months. So just as some of the statistics that we have from Project Reload and what we are able to do with some of the chambers, and just with my chamber alone, we've already had over 15 members come out on one of our Project Reload missions. The biggest one that stands out to me is not the one in the big black blocks, but in the bottom right-hand corner is when we say all the transitioning veterans that come out on the missions are employed within 90 days of the mission completion, and they are employed by the companies that come out on those missions. All of the executives that come on our missions have said that they will hire these veterans irrespective of the job. They can train them to do everything. They are hiring them based off of their character. And as you can see, we have, the number is a little bit higher right now, but we have over 315 companies that we put through our Project Reload training, and to include 5 of the Fortune 10 companies. And we have just over 100 elected and DoD officials that are fully engaged with Project Reload. So going back to that 71% look at veterans as heroes rather than strategic assets, we put our members through the same exact survey before and after the mission. And we do this, but we do the post-mission survey after about 10 days. We don't want it to just do it right away when it's a very emotional state for them. We do this 10 days later so we can actually let them divulge it, let them process it and figure it out. So our numbers pretty much match, very similar to the Edelman Intelligence as far as the pre-mission understanding, where 60% of our alumni have thought that veterans were heroes. Now, when you look at the post-mission understanding, what you're seeing is now you're seeing 90% of our alumni look at veterans as strategic assets. So this is where you know that we are truly creating opportunities and changing the minds of corporate America. With the works of the chambers, so these are just a couple of the events that we've done just this year. These are some of and one of the things that Joanna and I actually had a very long, very candid conversation yesterday. We were talking about a lot of the things that we can do to help improve chambers. And one of the biggest things is education. You know, in these webinars and everything, these are golden. You know, when you're trying to educate yourself, your organizations, or even your chamber, it's bringing in the subject matter experts on the topic. Now, a lot of these are for different chambers. As you see, the one right there in the middle, this is at the Frisco Chambers, and we do a Young Entrepreneurs Academy. They call it YA. What they do is on a monthly basis, they bring in 4 business leaders, and it's usually 4 drastically different CEOs or business leaders to talk about and to help these young entrepreneurs grow their own businesses. If you look on the left, a really short kid, this kid created an app that allowed sports teams to let their fans order food directly to their seat, and then waiters and waitresses would actually deliver the food to their seats. That kid is 13 years old and has already sold it to 7 professional teams for over $1 million each. This kid is just a breath of fresh air when it comes to just what the youth of America is getting to. But this is the type of thing that chambers can do. If you look at the bottom right, those are 2 of our Project Reload alumni. And the reason I put both of them on there is they came out on a Project Reload mission last year, hadn't known each other. The one on the left is an Air Force veteran, but also runs a technology company in Frisco. And the one on the right, he's the CEO of a large radio station in Frisco. Hadn't known each other. I partnered them together. By the time they were done with the mission, what had happened is those 2 started working together. The technology, Josh on the left started working, doing all the technology for the radio station. The radio station was able to increase their revenue by 32% within the first 6 months. Obviously, the return on investment for the technology company was in turn increase in revenue for his company. The one on the left had joined the chamber and is now already working 18 different contracts within that chamber. Because of the increase in the partnership, and going back to that little girl on the wall, is everybody has been coming together trying to help this veteran business owner, and now other veteran business owners have come. So the membership increase for just the Frisco Chamber for I think just the last 3 months has gone up about 15%. So there's constantly veteran business owners that are coming out of the woodworks, and they're joining the chamber because they know that the chambers are going to be behind them. They're going to be that force multiplier that's going to be able to push their companies to the next level. The rest of them are just educational talks that I've done, very much like Justin Walker. Justin Walker and I, we've known each other now for quite a few years. We've partnered with Punker Labs, and we help veteran entrepreneurs get connected with investors or business partners. But really, the one thing that if you were going to take anything away from this is just looking at what a veteran can do for your company, but also what these veteran business owners can do for your chambers. They are going to be bringing, when people transition out of the military, and I will tell you that the numbers will fluctuate every year. It's really going to depend on who is elected and who is sitting in office, because that's going to determine the amount of people that are actually transitioning out of the military. 3 years ago, the number was upwards of 250,000 a year. The number has fluctuated a little bit over the last couple of years, and it is already working with the Pentagon and the Soldier for Life program at the Pentagon. They have said that the numbers will drop in 2019, and then they are going to increase again right in time for the next election, just because there's uncertainty. It's the same thing with business as it is in the military. So these numbers are going to fluctuate, and that's why that predicted 3.5 million in 2025 is fairly accurate. But the big thing that I want you guys to take away from is just the value add that veterans can add to your companies as well as to the chambers when it comes to these veteran business owners. One of the things that we learned, and one of the biggest compliments we ever got, was from the Command Sergeant Major of where we do our all of our training. You know, the guy's been in the military for 27 years, and he just said that the limits for Project Reload are only as far as the imagination will allow us to go. And so one of the things that Project Reload is doing is we've got a See It, Hear It, Do It campaign. And See It is everything that they see in the community, doing all the events. The Do It is the sexy part, the sizzle to the steak. That's when they actually get to go out there, get their hands dirty, no pun intended. But the Hear It part is we've just launched a new platform called Vet Talks, very similar to TED Talks, but it's a communicative platform for successful business owners, successful veterans that have been able to transition from the military, start their own companies, and to show how the military actually guided them to that success. The first three that we are going to be having speaking is Rob Riggle. He is a retired Marine, and how he transitioned from the military into Hollywood. Daniel Alaric, who is the CEO of Grunt Style T-shirts, how he went from $1,500 to $150 million. And then also another one is Nate Boyer, who transitioned from the military as a Special Forces Green Beret and transitioned into the NFL. And so we're just going to bring success, because a lot of times you see a lot of nonprofits, they try to victimize their population or who they're trying to take care of to raise a dollar. What we want to do is we want to highlight success. And I'm sure that's what every single chamber out there wants, is they want to highlight success rather than the victimization of, you know, our companies or anything that's going on. So with that, this is the way that you guys can get in contact with us. And with that, I will open it up to questions for both Joanna and myself.
All right. Well, thank you, Casey, and thank you, Joanna, for that presentation. Lots of great information and new information for me, so I really appreciate it. Folks, if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to type in your questions into the question box on the right-hand side of your panel. You can just type them in, and I will read them to Casey and Joanna, and we'll get those questions answered. So we'll just take a moment to see if anyone has any questions. In the meantime, just a reminder that the webinar was recorded, or is being recorded, and it's going to be posted on our ACCE University webinar page. That can be found if you go to our website, our ACCE website, www.acce.org. Click on Professional Development, hover over ACCE University Online, and then click on Webinars. And you'll see all the webinars that we've offered over the past months and years even, and at the very top will be this one. Casey and Joanna will also give me their presentation slides, including the data and information that they have on the slides, and I will post those along with the webinar recording. So everything should be there no later than Monday. All right. I don't see any questions. If you all do have questions, we still have a few minutes, or feel free to contact Casey or Joanna directly if you want to dig in a little bit more to information and resources on how your chamber can be involved in veterans workforce development issues. I know they would love to hear from you, and so please feel free to contact them directly or type in your question. Okay, looks like we may have one question here. Hold on. Okay, question. How did you proceed with this concept, and did you have buy-in from your board of directors? It's probably for Joanna.
Okay. Hi. That's a good question, and yes, I did. Because we had gone through the strategic planning and we really wanted to take a look at everything, I did bring it to them. But they also are very trusting in terms of the types of activities that we do, and this was something that was really generating only positives for our chamber. As I mentioned, it brought us membership, it brought us positive attention and media attention, but very importantly, it's invited in a new constituency and provided some value to some of the entities that already existed in our county. So yes, the chamber has been on board. I mean, the board has been on board, I should say. So it's been very supportive. They've been very supportive.
Okay, that's great to hear. Getting a few thank yous to both of you for your presentation. As a spouse of a veteran and a chamber president, one of our attendees just says thank you. It's very helpful, and I echo that. Okay, I think that's all we have for right now. Again, if you have any questions, just type them in. And I will, in the meantime, I'll tell you about our next webinar, which will be on Thursday, December 6th. A panel of your chamber peers will be discussing their chamber's foundations. They're an important tool, as you know, to be used by chamber and community leaders to facilitate and support transformational change for important purposes such as economic development, education, downtown development, and more. So in our webinar on December 6th, you'll learn some basic steps in determining whether and how to go about creating a chamber foundation and the accomplishments that can result. So please go ahead, and if you'd like to participate in that webinar, you can find it on our ACCE events page. Click on the webinar and register just like you did for today's. Here's another question. Any thoughts on Boots to Business, and is it worthwhile in addition to this? I guess Boots to Business is a program out there for veterans.
Boots to Business it's another nonprofit that's actually it was actually started I think about 6 or 7 years ago. And what they do is, as the veterans are transitioning out, those that are wanting to go to become an entrepreneur, or those that are wanting to start their own businesses, they actually help them get all the paperwork started in advance. So it is a great program, and they actually do some very mild transition services as far as helping with resumes for those that are not wanting to go the entrepreneurial route. But it is I would say that any nonprofit organization out there there's a lot of them. There's a little over 44,000 nonprofits out there dedicated to just veterans. But the thing is, every community is going to have different ones. But I know Boots to Business is a good one. And then again, there's so many out there. Just do the research. And just talk to them. I mean, any nonprofit organization is going to be willing to come give a presentation about their organization, because that's how they get their word out there. So I would just implore you to go out and just do the research and learn about all these different nonprofits.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like that's all our questions. Joanna and Casey, do you have any sort of final words before we wrap up?
I would say, and I know I mentioned it during my presentation, but I would just reiterate how interesting this has been to us and how educational it has been to us. I think the experience of being able to hear from our friends in the military has been transformational, honestly. I mean, in terms of just our mindset and the way that we approach business. And I think that's something that we all need right now, just to look at things a little differently, the resiliency to look at that stick-to-itiveness and that ability to just rebound and think outside the box and move forward. And I think that that is something that is probably the biggest lesson that I have had. I mean, aside from the obvious in terms of the chamber and how we move forward and how we can serve that constituency, I've learned so much. And I cannot speak highly enough to that. And even in the conversation that Casey was referring to yesterday, every time that I am able to talk to someone who is in this arena, and in so many, we learn something and we add it to our toolbox. And if we can then turn around as a chamber and share it with our community, then I think that we're doing our job. So I just wanted to end with that for my last comment.
As far as for me, it's again, just clear eyes and an open heart. Just go out there and do the research. Invite the nonprofits in even to be part of the chamber, because the thing is the nonprofits are going to have a vast network of other veteran business owners, and obviously another network. So bring in the nonprofits, because that's one thing that I have seen with a lot of the chambers I've worked with, is there really isn't a large nonprofit focus within the chambers. So I say just get out there, find out which nonprofits are in your company, or I'm sorry, in your community. It's free knowledge out there. All you got to do is just go into the IRS website and you can research. But that's it. I mean, just doing the research, doing the diligence, and bringing the right people into the organization definitely is going to help out the membership.
And if I could add one more thing, the nonprofits, it's a very good point, Casey. We now have over 50 nonprofits in our chamber, and there are several that came to us after we started this initiative, and it has proven to be just a win-win all the way around. So thanks for mentioning that, Casey. True, very true.
Okay. And I got one other question about whether, I think, Joanna, whether you'd be willing to share your template as to how you started your program. And I assume that if any folks want to contact you and chat more about any of the details, you would welcome that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you again, Casey and Joanna, for taking the time to present today's webinar. And it was a real privilege to learn more about your work with the veterans community. And thank you all for your participation and interest in our webinar. And to all veterans out there, thank you for your service. That's it for today. We'll end the webinar now, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.